towards where Davy Rogers is up. Rogers swings the left. What a goal by Davy Rogers!
Not one person in this stadium seen this.
You can see the guards behind the goal at the main stand. They will be investigating Shelbourne for robbery. They have absolutely mugged Sligo United here at Dundalk.
And find the goal! Harry Wood, the jersey's off. 6 minutes to... Look at the bad one! What a goal that is!
Hello everyone and welcome back to the LOITalk podcast. Absolutely delighted to have Aaron back on the show. We apologise, we missed last week. That was, I think, the first we've missed all season. Just a couple of technical difficulties. But we're very back on form now. With the new crew for this foreseeable. Also delighted to have Jamie in his new headquarters. As you can see, he's up in Galway for college. So, yeah, Aaron, I'll just go to you first. Aaron, thanks very much for coming back on. And I'm really looking forward to discuss these couple of games with you here now.
Are you there, John? You just broke up, sorry.
Sorry, apologies. We can get that edited. Yeah, Aaron, how are things? Thanks very much for coming back on. I'm really looking forward to discuss these couple of matches with you here. So yeah, welcome back.
Thank you. Looking forward to it.
Good man yourself. Great stuff. And Jamie, you're in your new headquarters. You're in Galway. Hope you've settled in well there and stuff. And thanks very much for coming back on.
No matter, John.
Ideal. Right, we're just going to get straight into it here, so lads, because we had a really good week of FAI Cup action. It was like, and particularly like the main story here, it has to be said, is actually Jamie's club. It's Kerry FC up against Sligo Rovers. Kerry won the game 4-3 after extra time. A historic night in Mount Hawk Park on Friday night as Kerry FC came from 3-0 behind actually to win 4-3 thanks to an 117th minute strike from Daniel Akuta. When it went to 3-0 after Sligo Rovers, another Owen Elling masterclass with a hat-trick, it should have been game over, match set then. So what went wrong for Sligo Rovers? But on the flip side of that, what a comeback for Kerry FC in front of a sold-out Mount Hawk Park. How important is a night like Friday for such a new club? I think it's just like, honestly, a historic result. Because, I really do. Because there's clubs where that might not have, or areas more would be a better word, that might not have clubs in their area. I'm thinking the likes of, Tipperary, big county. You've Laois, Offaly in the heart of the country. You've places like Monaghan that used to have clubs back in the day. Like, that's surely a huge moment for them to say, yeah, we can set up a club at grassroots level and even within a few years be somewhat competitive with even top sides like Sligo Rovers. I think it's just such an inspiring result for Kerry. But not just for Kerry, I think it's a big moment for the league in general. So yeah, I know it's onwards and upwards. And look, they're into the semi-finals. They have just as much of a chance as anyone. Like, nobody can count them out, even though we know how tough the draw is going to be against Shamrock Rovers, but away as well. But yeah, no, massive win for Kerry. And I think they deserve to their eternal credit. I might just go to Jamie first, seeing as you are our Kerry correspondent. And you actually missed this game, Jamie, didn't you? Unfortunately. Yeah, but what did you make of this one from your perspective?
Yeah, I've missed 3 home games this season and we've won them all. So I might not go to the semi-final in Tala. Yeah, I was watching on the bus. I was depressed. It was a sad journey home. And then all of a sudden we turned it around. Cian Brosnan seemed to be that man in the cup. He's provided the goals. Daniel Akute involved with all 4 goals, which is sort of incredible because he's been a guy that's kind of been inconsistent, maybe not delivered as much as you want him. I mean, what a night for the club. I mean, the scenes, I was watching it on LOI TV. I mean, it's just special. Now you get to go to the biggest ground in the country against what some would argue is the biggest club in the country. Look, it's probably the worst possible draw From a football perspective, as in playing competitive, you would have liked Cork City really, but I think for the club, it's such a massive game. It shows how far we've come under Colin Healy, under just even short 3 years. It's onwards and upwards. It's a milestone for sure. Now I think playoffs are probably out of reach at this stage. So I think full focus will be on that semi-final, even if it's very unlikely. Not many people backed us against Sligo. I'm going to back us against Shamrock Rovers. I'm really happy. I mean, the result is incredible. Sligo will be very disappointed. To concede 3 goals to us is fairly poor. Like, that's not going to help their confidence at all with the whole relegation battle. But I think for the most part, we'll focus on Kerry FC and we'll focus on the semi-finals, because what a result.
Ideal, unreal. And Aaron, we've already established, the viewers know, like, you have an incredible CV in the LOI. You've been following it for many years. So before we get your analysis, I might just ask you, like, have you ever seen such a miraculous result, whether it be in the cup or the league?
I think the one that stands out for me is maybe St. Francis winning the cup, a non-league side winning the cup, going back into Pete Mann's time. I mean, that must be over 35, 40 years ago. That's the big standout for me, when Francis won the cup. And anytime, the cup football comes around, you get mention of St. Francis coming in and winning it from nowhere, really. Team of amateur players coming in and having an amazing cup run. And I think that's the beauty about the cup, isn't it? Where, I mean, what sprung to mind even before the Francis game was the Liverpool comeback. I think Liverpool 2005 was it, the Champions League in Turkey, when they were 3-0 down, and they came out in the second half, and Steven Gerrard, I think, got a couple of goals that day. And you're sort of saying, like, I think it was after 65 minutes, I'm looking at results and I'm going, Sligo 3-0 up, that's them into the semi-final. And most people looking at that result would have been of thinking the same, I suppose. But what an unbelievable turnaround. And it just goes to show you that you're never beaten. The first goal that Sligo got, 3-1, and obviously 3-2. I'd say to get the third goal, I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a cup match in recent times where a team's been 3-0 up and resting on. I think was a reading somewhere that some of the Sligo people were texting or Twitter, they were on Twitter or X sending out tweets, we're into the next we're in the semi-final. And wow, that smacked them in the face. Like, but I have to say, for a team that's 3 years old, and delighted for Colin, I really am delighted for Colin. It's Jamie says a milestone. I think it's more than a milestone. I think it's a huge turning point in the club's development and history, that they can go and be in a semi-final of an All-Ireland League 3 years into their tenure, which is an absolute incredible feeling. And all that will do will give that club so much more confidence. It will help all those young players develop quicker. And the draw is tough, there's no doubt about it. But even going up to Shamrock Rovers and experiencing playing Shamrock Rovers away in a beautiful stadium, will only all go well for the club going forward. And an absolute incredible. I think it's the result of the weekend, the result of the season, probably, in my opinion. And maybe it's not over yet, as Jamie says. Maybe they can do something. I just can't see it. I'm always an optimist at times, but I just can't see Kerry going up there and doing anything against Rovers, albeit Longford Town did take the lead in the cup match when they played them up there in recent times, and they struggled over the line to beat Longford. So, maybe the stars are going to shine on Kerry for that weekend. Let's hope so.
Let's hope so is right, because look, it would be an amazing story to beat Shamrock Rovers, who are going for a cup double, like domestic cup double. And I think it's a fantastic point you make, that regardless of the result, like, that's going to be a great experience for Kerry to go up to Tallaght Stadium. It's the best football stadium in the country after the Aviva, you could say. well, after Turner's Cross, obviously, as well, but that's in a league of its own. But, so yeah, it's going to be, like, I think it's very much, it bodes well for the team that even if they don't quite get the Aviva Stadium experience just yet, at least they got the Tallaght Stadium experience. It might give them a bit of a taste of facing Premier Division sides in years to come as well. So yeah, Kerry can be absolutely thrilled. And I'm sure Daniel Akute will be, revered in Kerry for many years to come now. We better move on. It's only natural we're going to spend a lot of time in that game because it's very historic. But a bit more back to business. Finn Harps 0, Cork City 3. A brace from Evan McLaughlin and a goal from Shawnee Maguire helped the Rebel Army to a comfortable 3-0 win at Finn Park on Friday night over Finn Harps. There's been a bit of a revival for Cork City in the second half of the season, pulling together a bit of form. As for Finn Harps, they would be disappointed with the rest, but have to dust themselves off and get back ready for preparation for the playoff spot. Quite a poor performance to them, really, Friday night, Finn Harps. So I actually thought it was going to be a much tougher game, if I'm honest. Me and Jamie, in talking privately, will know that we actually both predicted Finn Harps a win here, actually. And we were very wrong, and I'm happy to be wrong. But no, Evan McLaughlin is absolutely on fire, in fairness. He's really doing extremely well. And that Shawnee Maguire goal, there was a real bang of him back in the day after it. So, look, my stance in Cork City is kind of a case of, I still think we're going to go down. And but the way we're playing, if we can keep most of our players around, there's every chance that we go right back up and have a decent season again next year. And I'm going to go really controversial here. And maybe I'm making a huge mistake here. Maybe I should keep predicting us to lose in the same way that I did with the Finn Harps game. But I'm actually going to go put it on the line here. Cork City will win the FAI Cup. I've said it. But look, we'll see how it goes. Jamie, what did you make of this game? And just maybe if you want, you can tell us what you think of that bold statement as well.
Yeah, I was disappointed with Harps. They've had a good run of form. Like they've been looking good. They're kind of pushing towards the playoffs. I thought they would challenge City. I thought they'd beat City, to be honest. I thought I know you by saying that as well, but you went the same. Yeah, look, it's the strength of the Premier Division. When any Premier Division team is at, they should be beating the First Division team. Like you said, it kind of bodes well for Cork City that they can beat a First Division team, an informed First Division team like that. So, hopefully that would be what they want to do next season, because it's looking like they will go down. They're not winning the cup. I would honestly put us at the same, us and Kerry at the same level. And I'm assuming we have similar betting odds, because you're looking at Rovers for the favourites, then you go on Packs, and then us do it firm at the bottom.
For sure, right, Aaron. What did you make of this particular game here? Finn Harps up against Cork City.
I have to say, I fancied Cork to win it at the time. I think Finn Harps have been too inconsistent in their performances of late. And I'll go back as far as, I think the last team to win the cup, you correct me if I'm wrong here, was Dundalk. When we won the cup, we got relegated that year. We beat Bows in the final, and that final was on in Talca Park. Gary Haylock was the goal scorer at the time, and it was the first time that three teams went down into the First Division, and we were the third team. We were about 12, 14 points ahead of the team and second from bottom. But we actually got relegated that year. So I think that was the last time that happened. I can't see it happening this year in terms of Cork. I think they've got a really difficult tie. I would have loved to see the Kerry-Cork game and the two Dublin teams playing off. And I think everybody would have loved to see that. But I think you've got to look at a Dublin final now in terms of Pats and Rovers. But sometimes the Cup always throws up something different. Albeit, as I said to you, when we won the Cup that year and we got relegated. But it's Cork have definitely turned a small corner, but it's enough. And I said this the last time, but it's enough to stay in the league. I just don't think so. I think maybe the Sligo result at the weekend will have a more negative effect on them. I mean, the fact that they've conceded all those goals late on, having been 3-0 up, comfortable, getting into a semi-final. Maybe that will knock more confidence out of them than it actually will Cork, and Cork can go and chase for the last few games. But it's probably highly unlikely. But I'd be sitting on the fence with Jamie there that I just can't see Cork winning either. But we won it at Dundalk when we were relegated, so anything can happen.
That's the spirit, Aaron. Anything can happen, 100%. Look, it's a huge ask, and I think Shamrock Rovers will be like full firing. And I mean, like that, you can't get through St. Pat's first, who were favourites to win the title at the start of the season, and who are pulling a bit of a corner themselves in the second half of the week. So it's a huge season. So it's a huge ask. But I don't know. I just have a feeling, But look, that's all it is. It's also based on our form, of course. We'll see what happens. But it's definitely going to be an interesting end to the cup. It's the cup, I think, has mirrored the league in being a very entertaining season. So, but the final second from last cup game was Drogheda United up against Shamrock Rovers, and Drogheda, the recent cup winners, brought Rovers very close, as Rovers only won 5-4 in penalties. It went the distance in this quarter-final tie thanks to a 95th minute equaliser from Andrew Quinn, but it was Shamrock Rovers who held their nerve in the penalty shootout. So the double could very well be on for Rovers here. They're looking really strong, and they're definitely, I would say, the favourites for most people. However, Drogheda United were extremely unlucky to lose in the fashion they did. And hopefully for their sake they can put it behind them now and kick on in the fight for the European places. So yeah, I think it's a good reflection of how good Drogheda have been, that it took penalties for them to give up their FAI Cup, I suppose. And they still can very much have every chance. When we see the Bows Derry result, for example, this week that we'll talk about in a while, they still have every chance of going out there and getting Europe, in my opinion, and hopefully they won't be banned this time. But but look, you can't deny Shamrock Rovers' class either. So Jamie, your club Kerry, you'll be playing the winners of this tie. So what did you make of this one?
Yeah, Drogheda's always a hard place to go. So, it's a game you never expect a lot of goals from. Obviously they got a very late goal. Drogheda 95th minute, I think it was. Andrew Quinn. So they got lucky there. They obviously beat Derry on penalties in the previous round, so you can only ride your luck for so long. You eventually penalties they'll catch you. Luke Dennison's a very good goalkeeper. He's probably been the best in the league this season. But Rovers are just, they probably won't be happy with that result with Europe to come. That's a lot of minutes in the legs, sort of wasted, I suppose, in a way. They'll be happy with the results. They haven't won the cup since 2019, I believe. Bradley spoke a lot about doing the double last season. They won nothing last season, but he spoke a lot about how much he wants to do it, and this is the best chance he's had. It's a good draw. Drogheda are the only non-first division team they've played. They just about got over the line. They'll be happy with that. I think focus will now be on Europe. The league's kind of in the bag, and getting that cup win and getting that double secured.
Absolutely, yeah. And you couldn't doubt them with the quality they have later, in all fairness. Aaron, I'm sure you've been watching plenty of these two teams all season, so were you surprised to see the outcome, or what did you kind of make of the game generally?
No, I wasn't surprised. That was a draw in the end, albeit in the last minute, as Jamie said. It was an unbelievable finish, I have to say, from the centre-half, Quinn, who really took his goal well. But they're a very difficult team at home. And away, I've seen Drogheda away, where they have the three centre-halves, the two fullbacks sitting in, and midfield plays their team very narrow, and they're very, very hard to break down. You don't see too many high-scoring games within their setup, and they probably rely a little bit more on set pieces themselves going forward. So once it went into the penalties, it was a lottery, and then you're just hoping that you either have really, really good penalty takers, or you're just going to have an exceptional keeper on the night. And sometimes you can have both, but it's very difficult to stand up, take a penalty. And sometimes it could be your first penalty in the situation like that from a player's perspective. So it really is a lottery, as I said, when it goes into the penalties, and someone has to win it because someone has to miss or someone has to save it. I think McGinty has been good for Rovers this year. And maybe contrary to what you just said, Jamie, I think they'll be delighted that they've got over the line. I know they have a lot of games coming up and they'll be playing up until Christmas. But once you're in a semi-final, you're in a semi-final. It doesn't matter how you get there. And, they can relax for a few weeks. They can prepare for that semi-final along with all the other league games. So it was a predictable, tight game. The penalties obviously sorted it out in the end. But I thought Rovers would have won it on the night with the 90 minutes. But fair play to Drogheda. And I think, they can concentrate now, as you say, to make sure that they can get into Europe again, to right the wrongs a bit from last year, the fact that they didn't make it. So, Kevin's a shrewd guy, and they've invested well there. They brought some good players in, and I just hope that they can get over the line into Europe.
Hopefully, I think everyone would agree that they deserve it at this stage. After winning the cup last year, despite just avoiding their relegation in the playoff spot. So look, I don't think anyone would have begrudged them of York this season, and like we said, they have every chance. The next game up is St. Pat's. This is the last one actually of the cup. St. Pat's Galway United, which we actually did a bit of a watch along for the watch along plus the cup draw over on YouTube here. St. Patrick's Athletic were made to work for the result on Sunday evening, as they eventually got the better of 10-man Galway United. Looking ahead to the semi-finals, it would be Shamrock Rovers hosting Kerry FC and Cork City hosting St. Pat's. We'll get your thoughts on this game in a minute. But this was, being on RT, this was one I managed to watch, and very impressive stuff, in fairness. I would say actually more so from Galway, despite the result. Jimmy Keohane has a really good chance. About just over 30 minutes into the game, I want to say, maybe a bit more, a bit less. Just a few yards out from the keeper, and the keeper, Anang for St. Pat's, makes a great save. And then they have another chance then a bit into the second half. So I think Galway were quite unlucky in this game, to be honest. But the turning point was very much the red card. Mason Melia runs in goal. He's nearly 1-on-1 with the keeper, and he's absolutely taken out of it. And Galway are down to 10 men. Hurley scored an absolutely brilliant goal for Galway to get the equaliser, kind of from just outside the box. And I might just give a quick shout out for Jason McClelland. Thought he put in a really good shift, in fairness, for St. Pat's. But I think St. Pat's, that's why I'm quite confident. And I don't doubt Pat's quality. They've got some really top players, like some of the best players in the league. But I suppose, I think if they play like that, they can be got at in the semi-finals. But look, at the end of the day, it's a sign of a good team if you can play quite poorly and still get through into the next round. So, you can't deny Pat's quality for a second, but I think Galway can be encouraged with that display, because a lot of people are saying that they're going to go down, and whether it's straight down or more than likely through the playoffs. But if they continue to play like that, I think they'll either stay up or they'll beat whoever they have to face from the first division. So, look, they have no denying how poor they've been, so anything can happen, really. Jamie, you were in the comment section while we were on the watch along for this game, in fairness to you, asking some great questions. So what did you, how did you feel about this one?
Yeah, I mean, I'd probably disagree with you in the sense I feel like Pat's probably deserved to win it overall. Like I'm someone who's very critical of Jake Mulroney. He's ability-wise, he's one of the best players in the league. He's just so inconsistent, but that goal, the opener, was beautiful. Pats then got unlucky with Hurley's goal. I think it was deflected. And then Chris Forrester puts him in front. He was taking the piss. He was doing kicky uppies in the middle of the pitch. Look, they'll be happy with it. It's a game they expected to win. They similar to Shamrock Rovers, they'll probably be a little frustrated playing the 120 minutes. But overall, they'll be happy to be in the semi-final. It's a really good chance to get a bit of silverware this season. They'll be disappointed with the league. I think, yeah, I don't know. I fancy Pats. I don't know where you're looking at it from tinted glasses. I think Pats were good. I didn't think Galway deserved it on play.
Look, perhaps I am looking at it from tinted glasses, to be fair. But let's not forget your club is still in the competition as well. So we'll see what happens. Anyway, Aaron, this was the final cup game of the weekend here. I don't know if you got a chance to watch it, but what did you kind of make of this result anyways?
Yeah, I probably was looking at that through binoculars, but I can't help feeling that. I keep commenting on John Caulfield's sides, who are very, very tough to beat, and I watched them against Shelbourne, and they conceded a late penalty. I think they lost that game 1-0 away in Talca Park a few weeks ago. And I said the first goal on the night, if you get the first goal, it breeds a bit of confidence into the team and allows them get a little bit more organised and a little bit more structure, something to fight for. Mulvaney's goal, it seemed to go under one of the Galway players' legs. I think it's sort of half a shot really that skipped through the legs, and then you're thinking, that's it, it's all over. And to be fair to them, deflected shot from Hurley, I think it was, to get it back to 1-1. But the sending off, as you said, was there's always moments in games, the miss from Kehoe in another game, when people miss opportunities, when they're in one-on-one or they miss penalties and stuff like that. But I thought Pats probably were the better side on the night. The wonder free kick that Chris Forrester got, was would win any game, to be fair. It was just an unbelievable free kick. There's only one better goal at the weekend. I think it was the kid from UCD. Was it UCD who scored a coin or something? I can't remember his name now. Forrester's goal was just sensational. When Pats went 1-0, I thought that was it. I didn't think Galway get back into it, but the fighting spirit that they have at that club, obviously got them back in and got them into extra time. But Pats just think have a little bit more going forward. I think they've better forwards. Mulvaney again, like you say, Jamie, he's been disappointing this year for me. I don't know whether he's fully fit. Every time I watch him, he has, he sparks 2 or 3 minutes where he's really, really good, and then you see him again. He's walking back in terms of transitions. Media's been sensational for them this year. Forrester seems to come back and got his mojo back in the last few weeks because he's been playing quite a lot, and they've missed him early on in the season. So I think overall Pats deserve to win it, albeit in extra time.
Well, you make a great point about Forrester's free kick. I can't believe I forgot that, because the thing about it was very close in. Usually when you like to have a healthy amount of distance when you're taking a free kick, so you can get the ball up and down, and so you can get the proper amount of dip. But it was so. Now I think in fairness, Galway keeper could do a bit better, and the wall was poor. But at the same time, it was very impressive free kick from one of the best midfielders in the league for a long time now. Just before we get into the league action, lads, I know we've talked a bit about the semi-final ties, but just to confirm for anyone who doesn't know, it's Shamrock Rovers are hosting Kerry FC, and Cork City are hosting St. Pat's. I just like to get a bit of predictions going. I think Kerry put in a valiant display against Shamrock Rovers, and I'm going to say lose 2-0. As for Cork City, look, I've made my prediction known now. It's going to be, in my opinion, I'm going to say Cork City edge at 2-1 in a very close game. Can't underestimate Pat's danger threats, and this could very easily come back to bite me. But look, the predictions are kind of an Aegis game, really. Like, you're never going to get them right, unless the very odd person, really. But I think regardless, as much as it would have been nice to be Munster against Munster, Dublin against Dublin, it's still going to be a very interesting set of semi-finals. And I think the FAI Cup action, there's still a lot of it to come. But so, Jamie, just what's your thoughts ahead of these two semi-finals?
Yeah, what I want is a Munster derby. That would be incredible. Maybe not attendances wise, but that would be, what a night that would be. But I think it's going to be a Dublin derby, if we're being honest. I think that game probably I think that breaks the record for attendance, to be honest. We've kind of done that, not last year, but the year before, 23, with Shamrock Rovers in it, and then St. Pat's, who were involved in that record-breaking final. I think that breaks the attendance. I think that's a huge game. It's huge for Europe as well. I think if Shamrock Rovers wins, the Europa League place goes to second place in the league, and then obviously Pats will get the Europa League place. I think it's going to be a Dublin derby, unfortunately. But we'll see what happens. I hope I'm wrong.
That's totally fair. And Aaron, yourself, how did you see the semi-final ties going?
I think in a Kerry's perspective, they always say that you have to experience a game before you can actually win it. And I think it'll just be one game too far for Kerry in relation. The experiences that all the players will gain for himself. But when the young lads come into an environment and they step out into the Tallaght Stadium and there'll be a big crowd at the game, I just think it'll be a step too far for them. But look, you've got to take that experience and you've got to, savor the moment, savor those moments, because hopefully down the line when you get to another semi-final, or if they do get to another semi-final, they've got that little experience to recall in. So great opportunity for Kerry, a really no-win situation. They can go up there, they can enjoy the moments, enjoy the games, but I just think the Rovers will be too strong for them. The Cork Pat's match will be tired. There's no doubt about it. I mean, the Cork. One of the things when I play down in Cork as a player, when I manage down against Cork teams, is when them supporters turn up, it's a totally different atmosphere. And I think there'll be a big crowd on the night, and I think that will help the Cork team. And I don't think it will be as easy for Pats to go down and win there. I think it'll be a very, very tight game. I am calling Pats to win it, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be a really difficult game for them, and I think that could go into penalties.
Penalties, that's a good shout. I think with the form both sides are on, that's not even me being too biased. Cork City are in good form at the moment. Penalties, I think, is a real possibility. We're just going. So there was only one Premier Division game this week, because obviously most sides were playing still in the FAI Cup, and that game was Bohemians up against Derry City. A 7-goal thriller at Daly Mount Park on Friday night, with Derry City coming away with the 3 points. It's a really significant moment in the race for Europe and the race for second place as well. Jamie just talking rightly about how second place could get Europe depending on FAI Cup, Europa League or whatever, depending on FAI Cup results. So this game was massive, and I suppose it puts Derry City in the driving seat, really, and a really entertaining one. It is actually quite often you get high scoring matches this season, but you still never take it for granted when you can get it, because that's what you want to be seeing out of a football match. But massive results for Derry that they can bring back to the Brandywell. So obviously there's, without getting any way political, there's lots of rivalry at the moment off the pitch between Derry and Woes as well. Their fans seem to really not like each other. So absolutely. Jamie, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Buzz in recent years have really struggled against Derry, home or away. But they'll be really disappointed with this. You shouldn't be conceding 4 goals at home. And that kind of puts Derry ahead in the race for Europe. Maybe a few weeks ago we would have been talking about these two teams potentially competing with Shamrock Rovers for the title. But I think we can all agree that's sort of dead and buried. Derry now have a little bit of an advantage. there was a lot of goals, particularly in around the 60, 70 minutes mark. Then Ronan Boyce was sent off after in the 77th, I believe. So then you think, Bows can maybe get an equaliser, but then nothing happens. Well, Derry are down to 10 men. They'll be disappointed with the result, I think. I think they had, you should be scoring 3 goals at home and not winning, or at least drawing. It doesn't rule them out of Europe, obviously, but, with games in hand, they could be in a tough situation than they wouldn't have been had they got at least something from this game.
100%. Thanks very much, Jamie. And Aaron, yourself, observing, a bit of a Bohemians background, even. What did you make of this one here with Derry just about coming out on top?
When you see a game 4-3 in any league, like, it's brilliant for the supporters, but the managers will be pulling their hair out, and particularly with the goals that were conceded. And I analysed most of the goals. I actually played them back a couple of times, and Bows were in transition trying to play out from the back, or caught for the third goal, and after getting the equaliser to go 3-3. Trying to play out in the back, and it was a brilliant cross from Duffy to a guy called Fipo, who I've just seen on the radar. He's come into the Derry squad, and I looked at him in the game. He scored one, he set a couple up, and he looked a real threat for Derry going forward. Big, strong lad up front, and he seems to have made a big difference for Derry, particularly in the attacking phase of their game. But the second goal Bows conceded was the keeper mistake from a corner. He seemed to let it slip through his hands. And then to get caught trying to play it from the back in the last couple of minutes of a game, when you probably would have taken a point at home, considering the way the game went, it was disappointing. And to lose it in that, the last second or the last minute, as I say, the Bows fans won't be happy with that. But just to manage the goals, when you concede goals, bad goals, the managers won't be happy, and it'll be back to the training ground, working on organisation and working on defensive transitions. And if you're going to play it in the back, you need to be making sure that you're progressing the ball in the right manner rather than playing across your own goal.
For sure, Aaron. Yeah, thanks very much. I think plenty of mistakes the Bows can learn from. Right, so next up is the First Division preview, a review, excuse me. Jeez, I'm all messing up my words tonight. So I'm just going to go through the results, and then we'll just have a little chat about how the games went. So Cove Ramblers with a huge win over Treaty United. Cove Ramblers 3, Treaty United 0. UCD just about edged it over Langford as they win 2-1 at home at the UCD Bowl. And Dundalk continued their winning ways with a 3-1 victory at home over Bray. So obviously our admin was at Treaty United, in fairness, and he made the trip down to Cove. And let's just say, not too happy with how that went. Aaron was touching on a really good goal, I believe, scored for UCD against Langford, so I'm sure he'll give us good insight into that. And as for Dundalk against Bray, it's just fairly standard. Now, I think Bray have been quite good this year, but Dundalk, Dundalk are going to win this league, really, aren't they? It's kind of feels very reminiscent of the Premier Division situation with Shamrock Rovers. So, I suppose it's just about how they build now ahead of, because we know how big the gap is between the Premier Division and the First Division. We'll go to Jamie first. Obviously, your own club was, for some reason, I don't know why, wasn't playing this week. But what did you make of the rest of these results anyway?
Yeah, this is kind of the first week that I'm going to accept the title race is done. Dundalk had dropped points in the previous 2 weeks, but I think beating a team like Bray is just really convincing. Even if Cove are 3, I think the race is as good as done. And then UCD Longford, UCD are kind of firmly in a playoff spot. They're not anywhere near the title, and they're not anywhere dropping out of that. It's been a fairly standard season for Longford based on the last couple of seasons. So that's no way a surprising result. I think you could have predicted all 3 of these games, really. Treaty will be disappointed. Obviously they won the week before, to lose in that manner, but you would have put Cove as favourites, especially at home.
For sure, yeah, that's pretty astute analysis, I would. Aaron, you've talked to us a bit about the UCD game already, but what did you make of these 3 first division results?
I actually watched the highlights of all the 3 games, believe it or not, and I just wrote down one big word. Okay, the defending was shocking for the teams that lost in the 3 games. And if you take Cove for an example, I think Dylan McGlade scored the first goal from across down the right wing for Cove, and a defender turned his back on the game on the shot. I think if he'd have stood up, he could have prevented that goal going in. I think the third goal, I think McGlade got 2 that night, and the third goal that Cove got was something similar, coming down the right, crossover, and again, the player McGlade coming in late and placing it past the keeper. And Coffey, who seems to have had a good season for Cove, getting a penalty. It was a ridiculous penalty. One of the players pulling down. I think actually pulled down Coffey himself, and he converted the penalty himself. So the defending looked absolutely deploring from a treaty perspective. You've got to defend better than that when you're playing away in any club. And if you continue to defend like that, you're going to concede bad goals. And that the Cove ran out easy winners in the end. The Dundalk Bray match, on paper you would have thought Bray would have given them a better game. But if you look at 2 of the goals, the one thing I like about Dundalk is the Ruby-Kenny partnership. I think Ruby, I think he's on loan. Was he on loan from Shells? Or did he come in on loan from Shells? He's been very, very good in the last few games for Dundalk, and he's got 2 goals on the night. And Kenny chipped in with the last goal, the third one. But if you watch the first 2 goals for Dundalk, it's 2 throw-ins on the left hand side for Dundalk, and Bray just go to sleep. They don't defend the central areas, and they give away they give away 3 bad goals. Bray do, but when you switch it over and you see the goal that Dundalk lost, I think it was in the last minute of the game. Dundalk had a free kick on the edge of the box, and the Bray player Warren ran the length of the park and slid it past the keeper. You'd be disappointed you can see in the goal, particularly when you have a free kick on your own at the edge of your own box. So, but the 3 points was vital at that stage for Dundalk, and a good win for them. UCD game just looked stale. It just didn't look a great game. Again, I think Doyle scored first for UCD. Really clever finish. The second goal was a guy called Behan, where he checked inside from about 35 yards and hit a wonder strike into the far corner, which was the highlight of the game for me. Probably one of the goal of the seasons if you see it again. And then the Longford goal. They got back into the game. Was a horrendous mistake from the UCT keeper, just running out, miskicked the ball, and the Longford striker came in and tapped it in, which probably made nearly 3 or 4 minutes for UCD, but Longford didn't look good in the night, I have to say. UCD probably have to win it. So, as Jamie says, predictable result. I still think we did say a few weeks back that Dundalk were going to win it. Cove were going to be there in second. And it looks as if the 4 teams coming up behind are going to make the playoffs. I can't see Finn Harps probably. The result they had last week. It's going to be tough for them to make the playoffs now. I think Treaty will sneak in there, but they need to shore up defensively. Bray are already there, as I said, and Longford are just playing out the season now. Probably looking at next season.
I suppose Cove are unlucky that second place only gives you a playoff spot, because I think they've been well within for how they played this season, they're well within their rights to feel like they should be in the Premier Division. But that's when you're up against a team like Dundalk, it's very difficult, but there's still every chance to get into the Premier Divisions. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. We're just going to get into the Premier Division review now.
John,
no worries, yeah.
There'll be no team liking going down to Cove. Cove are the second, which it looks highly likely that there'll be no team, whether that's Cork, if it's Cork Cove, it's going to be a huge game. And they're really good side at home, Cove, and I've seen them a couple of times on TV. And there'll be no one liking the trip down there, I can tell you.
Oh, you're spot on. It's not an easy place to go at all. Even us that play there know it's tough in the legs, the AstroTurf and stuff. So, you're spot on. It's going to be wherever they are next season, there'll be a force to be reckoned with, I would suggest. just to get on with the Premier Division review, we're kind of at a stage of the season now, I would say, where every game has weight. This week anyway, whether teams are going for Europe or just trying to stay up. I suppose there's not much of a title race, unfortunately, but every game this week here has weight, I would suggest, for the impact of how the table is going to finish up. So the first one is very reminiscent to that. It's Sligo Rovers, who are in a battle for their survival, up against Drogheda United in a battle for a European spot. Two sides needing points for completely different reasons. Drogheda looking to continue their push for Europe. How important would a win here be for either team? And if Sligo were to avoid the playoff, would that be John Russell as manager of the season? I think it's an interesting shout. Obviously, maybe ignoring their cup run because that was very, very poor. But I think there's a shout. I think that they could, to keep them up after how difficult they were at the start of the season. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how Sligo actually respond to that Kerry result now. But anyway, Jamie, how would you see this one going?
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, it's interesting to see how they respond. Drogheda are a hard team to play against. If they're leaking 4 goals, and you're not going to beat Drogheda, because even if Drogheda score 1, it'll be hard to score against. Both teams were knocked out of the cup, so it's hard to say. I kind of fancy a draw. I kind of fancy Sligo to just get a little bit ahead of Galway and avoid that relegation playoff spot. I see this being a close enough game. Both teams will probably be looking for something, and I think because of that, they'll both get something. They'll get a point each.
Point each. I think both teams will be pretty happy with that, actually. Aaron, how would you see Sligo up against Drogheda at home? How do you see them getting on?
I think there's going to be players going to have to look at themselves in the Sligo dressing room, particularly after that last week's defeat down in Kerry. And I think there's going to be a lot of pressure on them this week. I think there's not going to be as much pressure on Drogheda. I think Drogheda are going to win the game. I think they won't win it by a lot. They never do. But I think Drogheda will win that game. And I think the fact that they've, the confidence will be down, bad result away from home, trying to get into a semi-final of a cup. I think there'll be a lot of nervousness around Sligo, particularly this weekend. And I have to sort of call out John Russell if he does keep them up. And manager of the year, I tell you, manager of the year would be Colin Healy if Kerry get into an FAI Cup final. That would be manager of the year. I can't see it going to John initially, and he has done a terrific job down there. There's no doubt about it. And I've watched his team playing a couple of times last season and this season, and they've been playing really well. So it's a real tough league this year. So the league has strengthened. Drogheda really strengthened. The top teams down in Dublin, have got better. Derry have got a little bit better. It's a real tough league, but I just think the defeat down in Kerry is going to play on most of the players' minds and the supporters' minds, and I think Drogheda will get over the line in that game.
Interesting. That would bode well for all the teams who are looking for survival, I think. Derry City now up against Shelburne is the next game. Second against fourth in a big game for the race for Europe. With Conference League action getting underway shortly for Shelburne, how important is it that they get points on the board before they have to deal with the big European away trips? A group stretch of fixtures. I think I would honestly make Derry favourites for this game. Impressive a lot of Shelburne has been under Joey O'Brien, and to qualify for to qualify is incredible for the Europa Conference League. But I do think I do think myself that Derry, just their form at the moment, it's hard to argue it. But look, Shelburne will want to kind of shoot up the table. And they've been decent, so look, it could go anyway really, but I just think Derry edge us 1-0, I would say. The Branduel effect obviously is quite a big deal as well, so going to be a very interesting one. We'll go to Jamie again first. How do you see this one kind of going, Jamie?
Yeah, like you say, Branduel is always a difficult place to go. It is a huge game with huge European implications. Derry really keen to get something out of this game because that really puts them in a strong position. Shelbourne obviously have games in hand. If they win both their games in hand on Bows, they go up to third, and then they're in that European place. Again, depending on Shamrock Rovers Cup results, we don't know if it's top 4 or top 3. Yeah, but I'd kind of be on your side saying I favour Derry. I think it'll be close. I think it could go either way, but I think the fact it's in a Brandywell, they're coming off a win over Bows. I think they'll get something. I think they'll win the game. And that'll be huge for them. You know, they'll have 5 games from the rest of the season. They'll have a nice advantage on Shelbourne then. And that puts them in a really strong position to get European football, something that they didn't get last season, something that they'll badly want from this season.
I was just kind of thinking of Shelbourne not being able to get past St. Pat's in the Cup either. Just kind of makes me think that they've just been very disappointing this year, and you know, Derry with the momentum will just about edge to win. But Aaron, Derry at home up at the Brandywell up against Dublin's finest apparently. How do you see this one going?
I think as a manager, you would always definitely rather have points on the board than games in hand. Games in hand look good for some supporters. Okay, we've got a game here, 2 games in hand. I think most managers at this time of the season would rather have points on the board. I was impressed, I have to say, with people playing up front for Derry. And I think his pace and power will cause Shells a lot of problems at the weekend. I definitely think Derry will win the game. It's very difficult when you've just qualified for such a big event or a big tournament like Shelbourne have, and putting in a performance like they did, particularly up in Linfield, and then they follow that up against Galway. It's not going to be, you know, they're a tough side. They've got some really good players, Shelbourne, and obviously they'll have good memories of the win up there last year when Duffer did win the league. But I just think the momentum, you know, the fact that they scored 4 goals away to Bows will give them a little bit more momentum, and it is difficult to play. It's you know, anytime I brought a team up there, anytime I've played up there, it's you know, traditionally it's been a very, very difficult place to get a result like. So I think they will win the game. It will be close, as like you guys have said, and you know, I just think, you know, that result against Bows will give Derry a huge confidence booster going into the last few games as well.
For sure, yeah. It's an important one in the race for Europe. Like, there's no denying that. Next one up is Cork City up against Shamrock Rovers. If Cork City have any hope of pulling off the Great Escape, 3 points is needed here. There's no 2 bones about it. Like Shamrock Rovers will be starting their European action in a couple of weeks. So, or this week, I think, maybe next week. Anyway, it would be a huge boost for them if they could, you know, end up in get the league title fully wrapped up, so they can just focus on another solid European campaign, as they had last time, obviously. So, yeah, it's important. You know, it's important for both sides in that sense. Here's my. I'm going to be called a massive conspiracy theorist here, but I'm okay with that. I think Shamrock Rovers win this game 1 or 2-0, maybe even 3-0, like, quite comfortably. But I don't like to bring in other leagues, but the English Premier League last season, Newcastle won the EFL League Cup, beating Liverpool. Now, a few weeks before that, Liverpool played Newcastle and kind of played them at the Park at Anfield 1-2-0. But Eddie Howe admitted after that they were kind of sussing out Shamrock Rovers and seeing Liverpool, and seeing kind of how they play. I see a similar situation here. You know, now look, that's provided we actually get into the final, which a big tough ask against St. Pat's first. But I just think destiny has us that, you know, we lose this game tonight and go on to win the cup. But look, regardless, playing Shamrock Rovers is such a almighty task. They are. I really, unlike a lot of Cork City fans don't like Stephen Bradley, like for reasons we won't get into, but I really do admire Stephen Bradley a lot. I think he's a great man. I know Stephen Kenny project didn't really work, but I still But yeah, look, Stephen Bradley is a fantastic manager and probably an even better person, and I wouldn't rule him out for the Ireland job even someday. So yeah, that's just how I see this game going. This particular game, it's not going to go Cork City's way, but it will be long term that it will flourish. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But we'll go to Jamie first. Enough of my yapping. Jamie, how do you see this one going?
I think Rovers will beat you twice this season. You drew once, I think. I see Rovers getting a third win. Yeah, they're just a class above. Like, I think it just puts the nail in the coffin of your survival hopes. Again, like, I want it to happen both for your reaction, John, and also just I mean, look, it's just a fairly straightforward thing to say. I think Shamrock Rovers is just a level above most teams in the league, but especially Cork City. Even if fans get behind City and it's a difficult place to go, I think it's 2 or 3-0, like fairly straightforward, routine result.
Totally fair. Aaron, how would you see this one going? Cork City up against Shamrock Rovers at the Cross.
I think I'm 40 years in the game, lads, and I've definitely never had or never thought that, you get a routine result. I think you still have to walk out onto the pitch. It's still 11 players against 11. And I watched the game of the weekend in the Premiership where Liverpool were playing Burnley, and I thought that was a walk in the park for Liverpool, or going to be a walk in the park for Liverpool. Looking at the two teams and the two sides that were put out, stuff like that. And Burnley put their backs against the wall. And they battled and they slid into tackles. They, transitioned. They were running with Liverpool players. They were tackling. They were trying to get forward once or twice. They didn't do it a lot. And they were blocking shots, winning headers, and then obviously they got done in the last minute with a handball. So, I don't think it's anything as confident as a routine win. And I just think if Cork can galvanise that group of players together and get everyone behind the ball initially, playing the counter-attack, because unfortunately Rovers are going to have most of the ball, they're going to have most of the play, they're going to be dictating the play in terms of the 3 centre-halves that they have. The players in the middle of the park will be spraying the ball around. But if you can really set up and you can play narrow and make sure you're forcing the ball, you're forcing the play wide, and then you're dealing with the crosses and you're dealing with the shots, and you're hoping that you get a bit of luck on the night, anything can happen. And you've got to take some sort of inspiration from somewhere, and it was a good win again, as I said, up in Ballybuffet. So again.
Can you hear me? I think we've lost sound. Jesus.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, be back there. Yeah.
Oh, he can't hear us. Is that the problem?
No. Have you got us back, John?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you can?
Yeah, we can hear you.
My sound is gone. Okay. Okay, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, the only games left are St. Pat's and Galway. So if you want to just cover them... Sorry. St. Pat's against Galway and Bohemians against Waterford. If you want to just cover them, and I'll just turn my screen off there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead there. So, and just signal to me when you want to end, and I'll end the recording then. I'm just actually, before you start, I'll just take a note of the exact time. so we know when to edit out. I'll probably edit this podcast because that's really harsh and keen if he has to edit it. Right, so it's 1 hour or 1:25. Right, so let's start. I'll just turn my camera off. Start again whenever you're ready.
Go ahead, Jamie.
No bother. Right, so next game is St. Pat's versus Galway. Obviously, these two sides met on Sunday evening. It will be part as well, so a complete repeat of this fixture. John obviously spoke about Cork's new Shamrock Rovers potentially figuring each other out. John Caulfield could learn from that defeat, and there might be a different result. Personally, don't see it. I think it's going to be a similar story, maybe easier for Pats. I believe suspensions carried through, so Galway would be that centre half. How do you see this one going, Aaron? Do you think it's going to be a repeat of the quarterfinal?
No, I think it's going to be a close game again. I just think that's will have too much firepower, and I think they will definitely win it. I think they'll win it easier than they did in terms of the cup match. The cup match, a little bit more to play for. But I think on the night, I just think, Pats with Mulvaney scoring, Forrester scoring, and the win, the confidence brings when you get to a semi-final, it gives you a real big lift. It gives the supporters a lift. It gives Stephen a lift, and I think I think Pats will be too good for Galway this weekend.
Yeah, I would agree as well. It's an important big game for Pats as well because they're obviously a little bit behind in the European race, so they're going to have to pick up form in the remaining couple of games as we close off the season. And then finally, Bohemians versus Waterford. Waterford are a little bit above that relegation playoff spot, but they're hovering above. They're not safe just yet. And Bows are in that European race, so it's a big game on both ends of the table. Bows will be looking to get back on form. They lost at home last week. They'll be hoping to win at home this week. Probably an easier game, you would say, but like Aaron has said previously in the podcast, there is no easy games. I think Dawson Devoy is still out, and Dawson Devoy is very key to what Bohemians do under Alan Reynolds. He's probably their best player. So they are without that sort of an asset and that big of an asset to them. But I would still fancy them to just about beat Waterford. I don't think it'll be easy. I think it will be a close enough game. But I think Bows at home against a team that's nearer to the bottom of the table, you would fancy them to pick up 3 points. But Aaron?
Yeah, they've been really inconsistent, I think, Waterford. You just don't know what Waterford's going to turn up like. When they do turn up and, they pass the ball around and, they're a threat going forward. They've always been a threat down the RC. But you just don't know what goal he's going to turn up like. I thought John Coleman, when he came in, would have brought in a few more players from the UK. I know they brought one or two, but I thought they would have brought in a lot more. I don't know whether the finances are there to actually do that. Going forward, I don't think they'll be in a relegation. I think they'll just see out the season where they are now. They'll pick up a point or two in games, particularly at home, not necessarily away. And I think the big letdown, I suppose, for Alan Reynolds this weekend was, the goals they conceded and, the way they conceded those goals. They more or less handed goals, as I said, to Derry last week. So it's a tough one to call. I can see that being a draw.
Yeah, I suppose, again, I kind of agree with you that when Coleman came in, you sort of, with his big reputation in England, you kind of thought there would be a little bit more of a surge in form. But it's been a slight improvement, but it's been nothing different to what Keith Long had at the start of the season. But look, they'll comfortably stay up, and I think that's the main point. And you would think he would have his own squad next season, bring in a few more players, and then that's what Waterford should be looking for right now. I agree with you. I think they'll stay up. Worst comes to worst, they could be in that position. But I would say it's between Galway and Sligo at this stage. Any more thoughts before the end of the podcast, Aaron?
I actually don't know whether. I think Coleman might go at the end of the year. I don't think he'll stay. I think he'll probably look to go back and do something, in the UK. He obviously spent most of his career over there. I played for teams that he managed, and he's very good at the teams that he managed over there, and he had a good career from that end of it. It'd be an interesting one. I think he might go back, and Waterford could be looking for a new manager.
Do you think it's a case of if he's promised players that he can bring in, then that would keep him, if he was offered the finances, to bring in his own players, his own squad, that would be the thing that would, I suppose, entice him.
Maybe so. I mean, budget's going to play a big part because, you know, they're in a really tough league this year. You know, the Premier League is a tough league. Most of the top teams now are throwing money at it. They've got bigger budgets, obviously. Rovers, Derry, Shells, Pats. You know, there's a lot of really good sides in it now, and you don't want to be going into a league where you're relying on young players who are trying to get you into a situation where, you know, you're going to be in a relegation battle. Like, and if they don't, you know, produce finance or give them a good budget, I definitely think he'll go. Like, you know, and what you could have then is, you know, Waterford going, getting promoted, getting relegated, getting promoted. You don't want to see that. That's been happening with the clubs that don't have a lot of money to spend. And you know, if Dundalk come up next year, if Dundalk come up, are they going to throw more money at it? They've already struggled this year. They've kept a lot of their players. Got some good young kids in to obviously they get back up into the Premiership. But, you know, how are they going to do next year? They don't have huge budgets. And I think it'll be difficult if they do when they get promoted. I think it'll be difficult for them to stay in it as well. Like, so it's a big gap. When you get promoted, it's like all the clubs down in the first division getting into the Premiership in the UK. It's no different to that. Like, you know, it's a big jump for the players. And if you don't have the finances to build a squad to compete against the top teams, it's going to be difficult.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, I suppose I've watched more First Division than Premier Division over the last couple of years, and you notice it like that. There is a big jump, and when teams do get promoted, they generally change their whole squad because they have to compete. I would see. I mean, there's a few standout players from Dundalk. Owen Kenny impressed me. He's one of the players I would say. You know, they're probably looking at keeping. I know there was a left back that went to Brighton, Keogh. He was a player that impressed me. He's obviously gone now. Yeah, I mean, how big do you think generally teams will have to change their whole squad for that to happen for any chance of survival?
Well, not necessarily change the whole squad. Like, I mean, they'll probably have a nucleus of 8 or 9 players that have done well for them last year. Like, and Dundalk definitely have a nucleus of players that have done well for them. But when the big jump is that, can you get a couple of experienced players in that can help these young kids, develop further in the Premiership? But it's just such a hard league. When you get promoted again, you're overloading players, particularly young players, like in a league that they've gone from a part-time setup. Most of the first division players are in a part-time setup. I don't think there's any first division club who are full-time. And then you're going up to compete in a league where most of those clubs are full-time, training every day, recovering when they need to recover, obviously doing the weight sessions when they need to do the weight sessions. So it's not just physically when you move up, it's also like mentally when you've got to go and produce a performance away at Woes, away at Shells, away at Pats, over to Tallaght Stadium or even away at Derry. Like, they're real big games, like for young kids. And when the clubs do get promoted, they need to really have a look at where they can recruit their players, because the recruitment is going to be huge in order for them to stay in the league. Like, you can see it already this year. The fact that Cork are struggling, and even Waterford, I didn't think would struggle this year. Believe it or not, I know Keith obviously stepped down a good few weeks back, and when John came in, I don't think they will go down. But I don't think they'd have thought they'd had the season that they would have, because they're full-time team as well. Like, so they would have had aspirations to be higher in the league and probably maybe competing with the likes of a Pats. Yeah, no,
I'd agree as well. I wouldn't have had Waterford down the bottom. I think that's kind of a perfect way to end this. We'll look forward to the transfer window, but from now we have a couple of game weeks left. Europe is also ahead. Let me know what you thought of everything we've talked about in this podcast episode, what your predictions are for this week's upcoming games, the big couple of weeks for Irish football in terms of the league, the cup, and of course European, with two teams in the Conference League, a historic couple of weeks. And we'll be here to talk about it every single week. Me, John, and Aaron. Aaron, thank you for joining us this week.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks.